One of the hardest truths we face in relationships, friendships, or even family connections is this: when someone doesn't call you, doesn't message you, doesn't check in on you for a long time, that silence is not empty. That silence is weight. That silence is communication in its purest form. Think about it. We live in a world where communication is the easiest it's ever been. A text takes 5 seconds. A call takes 1 button. A message on social media takes even less effort. So when someone doesn't reach out for days, weeks, or even months, it's not because they couldn't. It's because they wouldn't. And that distinction matters. We often fall into this trap of giving people the benefit of the doubt. We say, maybe they're busy, maybe they forgot, maybe life got in the way. And yes, sometimes life does get busy. But here's the part we don't like to admit: if someone truly values you, if someone genuinely prioritizes you, they'll make time. No one is too busy to send a 5-second text that says, "I'm thinking about you." No one is too busy to return a missed call when they get a spare moment. What silence really says is, "You're not at the top of my list right now." And the most dangerous part, we start to internalize that silence. We begin to think it's about us. We tell ourselves, maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe I should have reached out first. And before you know it, you're carrying the weight of someone else's absence as if it were your fault. But it's not your fault. Their silence speaks to their choices, not your value. Here's the key. Silence is an answer, but most of us don't want to hear it. Why? Because hearing it means we have to accept it. And accepting it means we have to let go of the illusion that the other person cares as much as we do. And that's painful. It's so much easier to live in denial, to keep refreshing your phone, to keep hoping for that message that never comes. But deep down, you know the truth. Now let me shift your perspective for a second. Imagine you send a message to someone you care about. You don't hear back. A day passes, 2 days, a week. How long would it really take you to get back to them if you valued that relationship? Not long. Because when someone matters to you, they matter through the chaos, through the business, through the distractions. Silence, then, is not about time, it's about priority. And this is where you have to be honest with yourself. If you're constantly waiting, constantly wondering, constantly second guessing whether you matter to them, then the silence is already speaking. It's telling you that you are not on their radar in the way you should be. Let me tell you something powerful. Silence can actually set you free. Because the moment you stop filling in the gaps with excuses, the moment you stop pretending silence means something it doesn't, you take your power back, you stop chasing, you stop begging for crumbs of attention. You stop making someone else's lack of effort a reflection of your worth. And I want you to hear me clearly on this. Their silence doesn't mean you are unworthy. It doesn't mean you are unlovable. It doesn't mean you don't matter. What it does mean is that you now have information. And with that information, you can make a choice. Some of you are still stuck in cycles where you keep chasing people who stopped choosing you a long time ago. And every unanswered message, every ignored call, every forgotten birthday is the universe whispering to you, pay attention. They are showing you who they are. But you keep ignoring the whispers. You keep fighting for someone who has already surrendered. Silence is not the absence of love, it's the absence of effort. And effort matters. Relationships aren't built on words, they're built on actions. You can say, I care about you, 100 times, but if you can't show up in the simplest way, through a message, through a call, then the words don't mean much. Silence, on the other hand, is brutally honest. It doesn't sugarcoat, it doesn't pretend. It just tells you the truth you've been avoiding. And here's the hardest pill to swallow when someone's silence hurts you. It's because their presence mattered to you more than your presence mattered to them. That imbalance is painful, but it's also clarifying. It shows you where you stand. And once you know where you stand, you don't have to keep standing in the same place, waiting for someone who isn't walking toward you. Think of it like this. If you were standing in a room with someone you loved, and they walked out without a word, without looking back, without acknowledging you, would you chase them? Or would you eventually realize they made a choice, and you need to make one too? Silence is just that scenario in slow motion. The door has already closed, you're just waiting to accept it. Silence speaks volumes, but the question is, are you listening? Are you willing to hear what it's telling you? Because until you do, you'll keep wasting your energy on people who've already spoken their truth, just not in words. Let me tell you something most people don't want to admit. We live in a culture addicted to attention. The pings, the notifications, the likes, the messages, our brains crave them. And when they stop, when someone doesn't text back, when someone doesn't call, we start to panic, we start to question ourselves, we start to tie our value to someone else's decision to acknowledge us. But your worth has nothing to do with who decides to give you attention. Let's break this down. Imagine for a second that you buy a brand new phone, you take it out of the box, it's shiny, it works perfectly, and then you set it down. Just because you don't pick it up for a while, does that phone suddenly lose its value? Of course not. It's still powerful, still designed with purpose, still full of potential. The only difference is you're not using it. That's how you need to look at yourself. You are valuable whether or not someone is paying attention to you in this moment. The problem is we confuse attention with affirmation. We think, if they text me, it means I matter. If they call me, it means I'm loved. If they ignore me, it must mean I'm not enough. But that's a dangerous equation because it puts the power of your worth in someone else's hands. And the moment you do that, you've already lost. Because now your sense of value depends on whether or not someone else shows up for you. Here's the truth, real self-worth is quiet. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need a constant audience. Self-worth is when you can sit in silence with no messages, no calls, no notifications, and still know you are enough. You matter. You carry value even if the world isn't reminding you of it every 5 minutes. I see so many people making themselves smaller, dimming their light. Just because someone isn't paying attention, they stop sharing their ideas. They stop showing up fully. They stop being themselves, all because they're waiting for a text that never comes. And let me tell you, if your glow depends on someone else noticing it, then it was never self-worth, it was borrowed worth. And borrowed worth can be taken away in an instant. Think about the times you've been ghosted. Someone you cared about suddenly stops responding. At first you feel anxious, then you feel hurt, then maybe you feel angry. And underneath all of that, you feel small. Why? Because their lack of attention suddenly made you question your value. But what if instead of spiraling, you looked at it differently? What if you said, their silence doesn't reduce my shine, their absence doesn't erase my presence, their lack of attention doesn't erase my worth? It's like walking into a room where there's a diamond sitting on the table. Whether or not anyone picks it up, whether or not anyone notices it, the diamond is still valuable. The diamond doesn't need someone to declare its worth. Its value is inherent. That's you. You're the diamond. But the problem is, too many of us keep acting like glass, fragile, breakable, only valuable if someone else handles us carefully. No, you are built with worth from the start. Let me tell you why this matters so much. When you tie your value to attention, you'll tolerate disrespect just to feel noticed. You'll stay in toxic relationships because at least they text you sometimes. You'll chase after friendships that drain you just because you can't stand the silence. You'll lower your standards, not because you believe in less, but because you're addicted to being seen. And that cycle will leave you empty every single time. But when you finally understand your self-worth, attention becomes a bonus, not a necessity. It's like having dessert after dinner. It's sweet, it's enjoyable, but it's not what keeps you alive. What keeps you alive is knowing who you are, knowing what you bring, and not shrinking just because someone else isn't applauding. I want you to think about the strongest, most grounded people you know. They don't chase attention. They don't beg for validation. They don't crumble when someone ignores them. Why? Because their worth is rooted inside of them, not outside of them. And that's the difference between living free and living chained to someone else's approval. Here's the shift. The next time someone doesn't call, doesn't message, doesn't show up for you, instead of saying, "What's wrong with me?" ask, "What does this reveal about them?" Their lack of attention speaks about their priorities, not your value. Their inconsistency reflects their choices, not your importance. Don't confuse the two. Attention feels good. Yes, we all want to feel noticed, cared for, remembered. But attention is fleeting. It can disappear overnight. Self-worth, on the other hand, is permanent. It's the anchor that keeps you steady when people drift in and out of your life. It's the voice that says, "I am enough," even when the phone is silent. It's the foundation that makes sure you never have to beg for scraps of affection again. You were worthy before they noticed you. You'll be worthy after they forget you. You'll be worthy when no one texts you for weeks, and you'll still be worthy when your phone is blowing up with messages. Nothing adds to your worth, and nothing takes away from it. Because self-worth is not about what comes in, it's about what never leaves. One of the biggest mistakes people make in relationships, whether it's friendships, family, or romance, is believing that if they just keep giving, keep showing up, keep trying harder, eventually the other person will match their effort. But here's the hard truth: relationships don't survive on one person's energy. They thrive only when effort runs in both directions. Picture this: you're driving down a two-way street. You're following the rules, staying in your lane, moving forward. But if the other driver coming toward you isn't paying attention, if they're swerving, if they don't care enough to stay in their lane, a crash is inevitable. That's exactly how it works with human connections. You can't carry the weight of both lanes. Some of you right now are exhausted, and it's not because you don't care. It's because you've been carrying the entire relationship on your back. You're the one making the calls. You're the one checking in. You're the one planning the meet-ups, sending the texts, remembering the important dates. And every time you notice the other person doesn't return the effort, you make excuses. You say, they're busy, they'll come around, They didn't mean to forget, but deep down, you know you're driving down a two-way street all by yourself. Here's the problem with one-sided effort: it convinces you to settle. You start believing that your worth is tied to how much you can give, even when nothing comes back. You think, if I just love harder, if I just try more, if they'll finally see me, they'll finally appreciate me. But relationships don't work that way. Effort is not a performance. It's not about proving your value. It's about mutual investment. It's about two people deciding this matters to both of us, so we're both going to show up. And let me be real with you, effort doesn't always look the same. Some people show it through words, others through actions, some through time, some through gestures. But no matter what form it takes, you can feel when someone is meeting you halfway. You can feel when they care enough to show up consistently. You don't have to beg for it. You don't have to remind them. You don't have to chase it. When it's real, you'll know. Now, let's talk about what happens when you're the only one putting in effort. Over time, you begin to feel resentful. At first, it's just little things like, why am I always the one reaching out? But then it grows. It becomes, do they even care about me? Am I just an option to them? And eventually, that resentment turns into emptiness because you realize the relationship only exists because you keep fueling it. If you stop today, it would collapse tomorrow. That is not connection. That is dependency. And here's the harshest part: sometimes we accept this imbalance because we're afraid of losing the person completely. We think, if I stop trying, they'll walk away. But the truth is, if someone stays in your life only because you do all the work, you don't really have them. You're holding on to an illusion, not a relationship. Effort has to flow both ways. It has to look like them checking in on you just as much as you check in on them. It has to look like them remembering your needs, your struggles, your wins, not just showing up when it's convenient for them. It has to look like balance. And balance doesn't mean it's always 50-50. Sometimes life happens, and one person carries a little more for a while. But the difference is, when both people care, the weight eventually shifts back. There's give and take. There's reciprocity. There's shared responsibility. Let me give you an example. Imagine carrying a heavy table with someone. At first, you're both holding one side, moving together. But then, halfway through, they let go, and suddenly you're holding the whole weight. You might keep struggling, thinking, I can handle it. I'll just hold on until they pick their side back up. But what if they never do? How long can you keep carrying it alone before you break? That's exactly what happens in one-sided effort. You break. Not because you were weak, but because you were never meant to carry it by yourself. And that's why recognizing effort matters so much. Because once you see the pattern, that you're the one doing all the work, you can stop confusing persistence with partnership. You can stop telling yourself that your effort will one day wake them up. And you can start demanding balance, the kind of balance that reminds you you are worthy of being met halfway. Here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud: love, care, and connection without effort are just words. Anyone can say, I care about you. But if they don't back it up with action, if they don't put in the time, the consistency, the energy, then what they really mean is, I care about you when it's easy for me, and you deserve more than that. So ask yourself this: if you stopped making the calls, if you stopped sending the texts, if you stopped carrying the weight, would the relationship survive, or would it crumble? The answer to that question tells you everything you need to know. Energy management: your energy is one of the most valuable currencies you'll ever have. More valuable than money, more valuable than time, because your energy is what fuels everything else in your life. And yet too many of us spend it recklessly, giving it away to people who don't invest back. Draining ourselves for those who don't even notice, leaving nothing left for the people and places that truly matter. Think about this every day. When you wake up, you have a limited amount of energy. Some you feel like you've got a full tank, other days maybe only half. But no matter what, it's not infinite. And every conversation, every text, every thought you give to someone takes a little bit of that energy away. Now the question is, are you spending it wisely? Or are you leaking it on people who don't deserve it? A lot of us don't realize this until it's too late. We run ourselves into exhaustion, giving everything to someone who never shows up for us. And then we wonder why we feel so drained, so empty, so unseen. It's because energy is meant to flow, not just to be poured out. And when you're the only one pouring, eventually your cup runs dry. Let's get real here. Some of you are in situations right now where you're constantly checking your phone, waiting for someone who rarely calls back, rarely texts back, rarely shows up. And every time they don't respond, you think about it. You replay it. You ask yourself what you did wrong. And that cycle alone is burning your energy. Not just the effort of reaching out, but the mental space it takes up when you're left hanging. That's energy you could be using to build yourself, to connect with people who actually value you, to create something meaningful. But instead, it's being wasted in silence. Managing your energy means learning to recognize what drains you and what fuels you. Some conversations leave you lighter, some leave you heavier. Some people walk into your life and make you feel alive, and others leave you second-guessing your worth. If every interaction with someone feels like pulling teeth, if every attempt to connect feels one-sided, then it's not just disappointing. It's costly. It's costing you energy you won't get back. And here's what makes this tricky. We often confuse loyalty with endurance. We think, if I just keep showing up, if I just keep trying, if I just keep pouring, maybe one day it will pay off. But loyalty doesn't mean draining yourself dry for someone who won't even lift a finger for you. Loyalty means choosing people who also choose you. Managing your energy means knowing when to stop investing in places that don't grow you, don't feed you, don't return anything to you. I want you to picture your energy like a bank account. Every time you give attention, you make a withdrawal. Every time you worry, you make a withdrawal. Every time you chase, you make a withdrawal. Now ask yourself, what deposits are you getting back? Are there people in your life who are depositing encouragement, consistency, love, effort? Or are you constantly overdrafting because the only person putting anything in is you? That's the reality too many of us ignore. We think energy is endless. We think, I'll just keep giving, I'll just keep trying, I'll just keep showing up. But burnout is real. Emotional bankruptcy is real. And it doesn't happen because you're weak. It happens because you're human. You were never designed to fuel other people endlessly while running on empty yourself. Energy management is about boundaries. It's about knowing when enough is enough. It's about understanding that you can't keep letting people swipe your card when they never intend to pay you back. And listen, this isn't about being cold or selfish. This is about survival. It's about protecting your mental and emotional health so you actually have energy for the people who deserve it, and most importantly, for yourself. Let's make this practical. When someone doesn't call you, doesn't message you, and you keep chasing, every unanswered call is a withdrawal. Every ignored text is a withdrawal. Every time you check your phone hoping for a reply, that's a withdrawal. And when the deposits never come, you start running on fumes. That's when you feel drained. That's when you start questioning your worth. That's when you lose yourself in the process of trying to hold on to someone who's already let go. But when you begin to manage your energy wisely, you stop pouring into black holes. You stop giving your best to people who don't even notice. You stop wasting your light on those who prefer to stay in the dark. Instead, you redirect that energy. You pour into people who pour back. You invest in spaces where your energy multiplies instead of disappears. You give to those who give, and suddenly your tank doesn't feel so empty anymore. Here's the shift I want you to make. Instead of asking, why aren't they giving me energy? Ask, why am I still giving mine? That one question can change everything, because the truth is, people will take as much as you're willing to give. If you keep showing up without boundaries, if you keep pouring without limit, some people will let you do it until you have nothing left. But once you start managing your energy, once you start guarding it, you realize you're not powerless. You get to decide who gets access to you. You get to decide where your energy goes. You get to decide how much you give and who's worth giving it to. And when you truly start practicing energy management, something incredible happens. You feel lighter. You stop carrying the weight of one-sided relationships. You stop draining yourself for people who don't even notice your effort. And you finally have energy left for the things that build you, the people who love you, and the future you're creating. Focus on the ones who show up. It's easy to get distracted by the people who don't call, who don't message, who don't show up. We spend so much time thinking about them, waiting for them, hurting over them, that we forget about the people who actually do. And here's the truth, your life changes when you shift your focus. Stop chasing the ones who leave you hanging, and start appreciating the ones who are already there. Think about it. How many nights have you gone to bed replaying the silence of someone who didn't text back, when right there on your phone is a message from someone who did? How many times have you overlooked the friend who always answers, always asks how you're doing, always makes time, because you were too busy chasing after someone who never replies? We train our minds to obsess over absence instead of gratitude. And it's not because we're ungrateful, it's because absence feels louder. But just because it feels louder doesn't mean it deserves your attention. There are people right now in your life who show up for you consistently. They may not be the loudest, they may not always say the perfect words, but they're steady, they're reliable. They don't disappear when life gets hard. They're the ones checking on you when you're quiet. They're the ones remembering your birthday, celebrating your wins, sitting with you in your losses. These are the people who deserve your energy. These are the people who deserve your focus. The problem is, we often chase the thrill of inconsistency. There's something intoxicating about wanting to be chosen by the one who won't choose us. We tell ourselves, if I can just get their attention, if I can just make them stay, then I'll finally feel worthy. But here's the irony, you already have people choosing you. They've been choosing you. And you've been so focused on the ones who don't, you've missed the beauty of the ones who do. Let me put it this way. Imagine you're at a concert. The room is full of people clapping, cheering, applauding you. But in the very back, one person is sitting with their arms crossed, not making a sound. And instead of feeling grateful for all the people cheering, you fix your eyes on that one person. You obsess over them. You wonder, why aren't they clapping? Why aren't they cheering for me? That's how many of us live our lives. Surrounded by people who support us, but consumed by the one who doesn't. And that's unfair, not just to yourself, but to the people who show up for you. Because when you focus on the absent ones, you unintentionally neglect the present ones. You take their consistency for granted, and slowly, they feel invisible. Imagine being the friend who always checks in, always shows up, and still watching the other person chase someone who doesn't even bother. Eventually, that wears people down. So here's the shift: to start valuing consistency over intensity. The ones who show up may not sweep you off your feet with grand gestures or constant drama, but their quiet consistency is worth more than 100 empty promises. Attention fades, excitement fades. But consistency, that's what sustains relationships. That's what builds trust. That's what proves love over time. Focus on the ones who show up because they're showing you something important: effort. And effort is love in action. Effort is friendship in action. Effort is proof that you matter, not just in words, but in choices. They didn't have to call you, but they did. They didn't have to check in, but they did. They didn't have to stand by you, but they did. That's not small. That's everything. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but what about the ones who don't? Should I just stop caring completely? And the answer is yes. Stop pouring your focus into what's missing. Stop wasting your heart on people who've already told you through their actions where you stand in their lives. Because the more energy you give to them, the less you have for the people who are already proving their loyalty. And that's not just draining, it's disrespectful to the ones who've been there all along. And here's what's powerful: the moment you redirect your focus, your relationships change. You begin to feel fuller because you're no longer chasing what's not available. You begin to feel lighter because you're no longer carrying the weight of being ignored. And you begin to feel deeper love because you're finally noticing the people who've been showing it to you all along. It might be your best friend who checks on you every week. It might be your sibling who calls without fail. It might be the coworker who asks how you're really doing. It might be your partner who, even in small ways, makes sure you feel seen. Whoever it is, don't overlook them. Don't downplay their presence just because it isn't wrapped in intensity. Quiet consistency is the loudest form of love you'll ever find. So the next time you find yourself staring at your phone, waiting for the one who doesn't call, pause. Look instead at the messages you already have. Look at the names of the people who already reached out. Look at the ones who don't make you wonder, don't make you question, don't make you chase. That's where your focus belongs. That's where your gratitude belongs. That's where your energy belongs. Let go with strength, not bitterness. Letting go is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. Not because you don't know how, not because you aren't strong enough, but because letting go means accepting reality without twisting it to fit the version you wanted. It means facing the truth that some people you thought would always be there won't be. And that hurts. That leaves a mark. But here's the part that changes everything: how you let go matters. You can let go in weakness, clinging and resentful, or you can let go in strength, with dignity and peace. When someone stops calling, stops messaging, stops showing up, it's natural to feel rejected. You wonder why. You replay every detail looking for answers. You ask yourself, was it something I said? Was it something I didn't do? Did I push too hard? Did I not do enough? That loop is endless. It will drain you, confuse you, and convince you that you're the problem. But here's the truth: sometimes people leave not because you were wrong, but because their chapter in your life has ended. And when you understand that, you realize letting go isn't about weakness, it's about wisdom. Strength in letting go begins with choosing not to hold grudges. Bitterness is easy. It's easy to say, they never cared. They wasted my time, they're selfish, they're cold, they're cruel. And maybe parts of that feel true. But bitterness chains you to the very person you're trying to be free from. Every time you replay the anger, every time you stew over the silence, you're still tied to them. Strength isn't in hating them. Strength is in saying, I release you. I release the need for closure. I release the need for you to explain yourself. I release the story I wrote in my head about how this was supposed to go. Think about how much power it takes to walk away without carrying baggage. To stand tall and say, I don't need revenge. I don't need to prove you wrong. I don't need to make you see what you lost. That's strength. That's self-respect. Because bitterness is about them. But letting go with strength is about you. It's about choosing peace over poison. And here's what people don't realize: letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean what you had wasn't real. It doesn't erase the memories, the laughs, the late night conversations, the moments that mattered. It simply means you're not going to chain your future to someone who's no longer present. It means you can honor the past without letting it hold you hostage. That's strength, acknowledging the beauty of what was while still moving forward to what's next. So many of us make letting go harder by holding on to fantasies. We think, maybe they'll come back. Maybe one day they'll realize what I meant to them. Maybe if I just wait long enough, things will return to how they used to be. And maybe sometimes that happens. But more often, what happens is we waste months, even years, waiting for a door that's already closed. Waiting for a message that's not coming. Waiting for someone who has already moved on. And the longer you wait, the harder it gets. Letting go with strength is about not waiting. It's about saying, I don't know what their future holds, but I know mine doesn't involve sitting here, stuck in the past. There's a kind of quiet courage in letting go. You don't announce it. You don't need to post about it. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You just wake up one day and decide, I'm done carrying what's not mine anymore. You stop checking their social media. You stop reading the old messages. You stop letting their absence control your mood. And it's not because you don't feel, it's because you've chosen to heal. That's strength. Healing isn't the absence of pain, it's the decision to stop feeding it. And here's the shift: letting go with strength means you also let go of the narrative that you lost. You didn't lose, you learned. You learned what effort looks like. You learned what silence means. You learned what you deserve. That knowledge is not loss, it's growth. And growth is a sign of strength. Now, bitterness will try to whisper to you. It will say, you should hate them. You should show them they were wrong. You should make them regret it. But listen carefully, that bitterness doesn't heal you. It only keeps you connected to the wound. Strength says, I don't need you to regret it. I don't need you to come back. I don't need you to validate me. That's the difference between letting go with anger and letting go with dignity. I want you to picture a rope. On one end is you, on the other end is the person who stopped showing up. And you've been pulling that rope for months, maybe years. Your hands are raw, your arms are tired, but you keep pulling, thinking one day they'll pull back. But they're not. They've already let go on their side. The rope is burning your hands because you refuse to release it. Letting go with bitterness is dropping the rope and screaming, I hate you for leaving me holding this. Letting go with strength is dropping the rope, looking at your hands, and saying, I deserve to heal. And the beautiful part is, once your hands heal, you realize you're free to hold something else, something better, something real. But you can't do that until you release the rope. Letting go with strength also means refusing to define yourself by who left. You are not less valuable because someone stopped calling. You are not less lovable because someone stopped trying. You are not less important because someone stopped showing up. Their actions reflect them, not you. And if you carry bitterness, you keep defining yourself by their absence. But if you carry strength, you redefine yourself by your presence. By the fact that you stayed true to who you are, even when they walked away. That's the kind of strength people notice. Not the loud kind, not the revenge-fueled kind, the quiet kind. The kind where you walk with your head high, not because you didn't hurt, but because you refused to let the hurt define you. The kind where you smile again, not because nothing happened, but because you chose to keep living anyway. The kind where you love again, not because you forgot, but because you refuse to let the past steal your future. So here's the truth. When someone doesn't call you, doesn't message you, doesn't check in on you for a long time, you have a choice to make. You can spend your days chasing silence, begging for answers that may never come. Or you can stand tall and let their absence reveal the truth. Because silence speaks, it shows you where you stand, and more importantly, it reminds you of something you must never forget. Your worth was never up for debate. Relationships are not one-way streets. They are not powered by one person's effort while the other drifts in and out at their convenience. You don't need to keep pouring your heart into people who can't even send a simple message back. Your energy, your presence, your love, they are too valuable to waste on those who don't show up. And when it hurts, when the waiting feels heavy, when the silence feels louder than any words, that's when you remind yourself the right people don't disappear. The right people don't make you guess. The right people don't keep you waiting in the dark. They show up, they invest, they stay. Letting go isn't weakness. It isn't bitterness, it's strength. It's the kind of strength that refuses to beg, refuses to chase, refuses to be chained to someone else's absence. It's the strength that says, I choose myself. I choose peace. I choose to honor the people who actually honor me. And when you walk forward with that strength, you realize something life-changing. Every unanswered call, every unopened message, every person who faded away, they weren't a loss. They were a lesson. A lesson that prepared you for something better, someone better, and a future where you don't have to wonder if you matter. Because you do. You always did. And you always will.